All right, welcome into One of One Sports. Today we're going to be doing another tier list video, this time ranking the futures of every NBA team. And I actually made this video last week post Luka Doncic trade, but then I figured since the deadline was happening, this week it was going to be outdated soon. So I'm remaking it with all the trades that have just happened. So post trade deadline NBA futures ranking in alphabetical order. We have our tiers here. S tier is you'll win a title. A tier is you could win a title. B, you'll be above average, kind of like a playoff caliber team. C, a below average team, and then D, so bad it might be good. These are teams that right now the future doesn't look bright, but like with lottery luck, that could potentially change. And then F, just a bad future. Starting with the Atlanta Hawks, I think before the trade deadline, I could have made an argument that they could have been above average. Looking at what Jalen Johnson's done this year, all-star caliber season. Trae Young, certainly an all-star caliber player. But with the trades they made and not having their pick this year, I think you're kind of in this below average tier where you're going to be stuck, where you're not going to be bad enough to get this tier where I think you have the lottery luck. That was last year, but since it was a weaker draft class, Reece Shea is not like changing the future of the franchise. And because of that, I think you're going to be perpetually like a bubble team in terms of borderline playing team, somewhere 7 to 11 range, and you'll maybe sneak in the playoffs a few years. And I should mention this for like the next 5 to 10 years, like at least. So at minimum, we're looking into a 5-year window. And for Atlanta, I just don't see how they're. I think potentially a Trae Young trade could even be coming soon. And I don't know how much asset or how many assets you're getting for that. So right now, I have Atlanta in this below average tier. The Celtics, this one is definitely an S tier. I think they will definitely win a title. You have Jason Tatum at age 26. So even if you just like you have at least 5 more years of prime Jason Tatum until he hits 31, and potentially even until he's 36, he could be a top 10 player in the league, like we've seen a guy like Kevin Durant do, LeBron do. You could argue even Steph Curry. So maybe Tatum could be along the lines of those guys where he can just ages really well. But I think at a minimum, you've got at least 5 years of prime Jason Tatum next to a prime Jaylen Brown. And within this next 5-year period, I would expect Boston to win another title. You have a top 5 player in Tatum, top 15 to 20 guy in Jaylen Brown, and a great roster around it. And you have most of your own picks, or at least some of your own picks, to supplement. You won't be able to make a ton of trades, but you'll be able to supplement through the draft at least a little bit. Boston in S tier. Brooklyn, you have a lot of picks, but not a game-changing young talent. I would have liked it better if you had sold on maybe a Claxton or a Cam Johnson. But even so, it's D tier, so bad it might be good. If Brooklyn gets lucky in the lottery, gets one of these highly rated draft guys in the near future, their outlook could completely change, and it could be the Brooklyn Nets look like they're going to be competing for titles. But until then, it's really just hope that you will be able to draft that guy, and they're kind of the epitome of the so bad it might be good tier. And the Hornets are going here as well, and I would move them ahead of Brooklyn just because you have kind of the same hope as Brooklyn, but you have LaMelo Ball, you have Brandon Miller, even a guy you just got in like Dalton Connect can be something. I'm going to struggle to pronounce his name, but the guy took 6th overall this year from France. I haven't watched him a ton, but I'm sure they still have high hopes for him. But at the very least, LaMelo Ball and Brandon Miller are proven all-star talent. Even if Brandon Miller hasn't made an all-star game and LaMelo missed it this year, they are that level of talent. So I think that makes their future a little brighter. And I could see it being here, but I actually think it could end up being like because they're going to be so bad this year, depending on how the lottery shakes out, they get Cooper Flag, it could jump up to here, maybe even here, if you get lucky enough. The Bulls, another one of these teams, and I would put them below the Nets for now. It's tough. I would have liked you to trade Vucevic, and you kind of traded most of your guys too late, as has been well documented in terms of Levine, Caruso. You didn't get off Vucevic, so you didn't get a ton of assets for that outside of Josh Giddey. I like Kobe White. You've extended Lonzo Ball. Buzelis, I think, is going to be a pretty good player, but there's no game-changing young talent. Kind of like you have more young talent than Brooklyn, not as many picks, though, and I'm not sure. I don't trust either of them to draft like crazy well. And the Bulls have just been in this below average tier for so long, so it's kind of a new phase for them, just going full-blown rebuild. So right now, they're in the very early stages of so bad it might be good, where I think it might be bad for a few years still. Cleveland Cavaliers, I think you could definitely argue will win a title based off how they're playing this year, right? And this core is going to be together for at least the next few years with Garland, Mobley, Allen, Mitchell under contract, and you just added DeAndre Hunter to give you a nice wing. But I struggle to see it personally. I just don't know if you have that top-level talent that can win you, that can be like a finals MVP, win you a championship. I don't think Donovan Mitchell is that. Maybe Mobley turns into that, but I haven't seen it from him yet. So right now, it's definitely possible they win a title, but I'm not willing to say they will win a title the way I'm so confident the Celtics will. The Mavericks, the Dallas Mavericks, just 1 week ago would have been at least an A tier, could have had an argument for S tier, but at minimum A tier. And now I think this is an F tier future. I'm sorry, you don't have your picks this year through 2030, basically, or control over your own picks through 2030. You traded away Luka Doncic, which is just one of the worst trades ever. Franchise cornerstone for Anthony Davis, who's aging and has injury risk. Kyrie Irving, based off his comments recently, I think he may leave in free agency, so you could even lose that asset. So lack of picks, lack of young talent, bad. I don't trust your GM and owner at all to make good decisions based on that. I think they have a terrible future over these next 5 to 10 years, and they caused it just fully self-inflicted wounds by them. Denver definitely could win a title. You have the best player in the world in Nikola Jokic, and that at least gives you a shot. I'm not willing to say will win a title because the roster around him hasn't looked great since they did win that one title, but he has just been so good where you can't rule him out. Even this year, where I don't think they're the favorite, you can't count him out with how well this guy's playing. Probably the best year of his career, and he's already won 3 MVPs, which is just ridiculous. The Detroit Pistons is going to be maybe my hottest take of the video, but if you watch my preseason prediction videos, some of the only NBA content that's on this channel, I predicted Cade Cunningham would lead the Pistons to the playoff, win most improved player, where I said he was be an all-star and an all-NBA level player. And I think that's all happening. But I've been huge on Cade Cunningham for a while now, even when people were kind of skeptical of him. Like, this is one of my favorite players in the league. I think he has so much potential. And I'm not like, this is where the hot take comes in. Like, I'm putting you could win a talent. Like, if I was starting a franchise, like what everyone says about Wembanyama, I agree. He's the top guy. Then the proven talents like Shea and Luka and Jokic and Giannis and Tatum, like those guys, I get it. But like after them, like I'm taking Cade Cunningham over any other point guard to start my team. I'm taking him over Anthony Edwards. Like, I fully believe in Cade Cunningham, one of like my top under 25 guys in the league, behind only probably Wemby. Like, I'm as big as a Cade Cunningham believer as you're going to find out there. And the rest of the roster, it's not great. I mean, they're improving, but like Asor Thompson's certainly got talent. Holland's got talent. I think with all this cap space, they'll add something this offseason and maybe even be lined up to make a trade for someone. And I think the Detroit Pistons behind Cade Cunningham, who's just going to be in my like a top 10 player in the league in just maybe even a year's time, will have them positioned over these next 5 to 10 years to maybe win a title, which is weird to say with how bad the franchise has been. The Warriors, I think there's an argument for just bad, but I think there's also an argument for below average. I don't think it's so bad. Like, I don't think they're the same tier as their teams. And you have a guy like Kuminga, and you still have Steph, but Steph's going to retire soon. And you just traded for Jimmy Butler, so the payroll is pretty high. When you think about this, you have most of your own picks, but it's just the old core. They're going to age out. And like this young talent, Kuminga, Podziemski, Moody, that's not good enough to put them even below average, really. But these next couple of years, they could be good. So it's like, do I put them bad? But they have their own picks, and I think they make better decisions than Dallas. But it feels weird. They're not the same caliber as this. I'm going to put just a below average future, just because I think you'll probably have a cup like this year. Next year, you'll maybe have competitive teams, and then you'll be on a downward trajectory, and you'll be closer actually to this tier, and maybe you come back up at some point. For now, I'm going to put them below average. But I think any of these bottom 3 tiers, there's an argument for Golden State to be there. Houston Rockets could win a title. When I first made this video last week, I almost put them in above average. And then like eventually I realized they should be this tier. And the only problem I have with the Rockets is I don't see the clear-cut guy that I think can lead you to a title. Like my problem with Cleveland, where I don't see it fully to put them enough will win title. That's kind of where I am with Houston. Like Denver, I know has that guy. Detroit, I fully believe has that guy, Cade Cunningham. I don't see that with the Rockets. Like Amen Thompson's great. Alperen Sengun's great. Jalen Green's a good player. I like Jabari Smith. Tons of like really good young players, but they don't have the guy. But because of all the picks they have, especially the Suns picks and the young assets they have to make a trade, they can probably get that at some point. And they've clearly been good with development enough. And the coach, I think Ime Udoka is one of the best coaches in the league. I'll put them and could win a title. Not Detroit Pistons, Indiana Pacers, I think it's the epitome of above average. They don't have the clear top 10 guy, but you have Halliburton. You have a few more years left of Siakam before he starts to decline, I would imagine. And you just have solid players around. Like Benedict Mathurin's going to be a good player. If you keep Andrew Nembhard, good player. I think Jarris Walker will develop and be a solid player. And Halliburton, I think, will be like a top 5 point guard in the league for the foreseeable future. But I don't see him being good enough to be like ever be like in contention for this. And you may have actually peaked last year, reaching the Eastern Conference Finals. But I think every year you're going to be about what you are this year, like a solid 4 to 6 seed in the East. Maybe one year you get a 3, maybe you have a down year, but just a solid playoff team year in and year out. The Clippers, I think you got to go F tier. And I actually like some of their moves they made recently, like getting the seconds in the Bogdanovich trade. What was the other move they made? I'm forgetting. Oh, taking a flyer, Marjan Beauchamp. Not a bad move, but there's just not definitive young talent on the roster, right, that you're super confident in. Not to say you have none, but nothing you're like crazy about. Kawhi Leonard's going to age out, and James Harden will age out. So maybe you land someone in free agency, but historically hasn't been a crazy free agency spot. You still have a lot of your picks gone. I mean, you have some of them back now, but you don't have as many picks as I would like to see. So right now, I think it is a rough future outlook for the Los Angeles Clippers. Unlike the Los Angeles Lakers, who maybe a week ago I would have put here, probably not. Actually, a week ago I would have probably put them like here because on paper it would have looked bad, but they're the Lakers, so you can always get free agency. Or, someone can just call you and trade away one of the top 5 players in the NBA for nothing, and that gets you in the could win a title tier. LeBron will probably retire this year or next year, I would imagine. But you're going to have Luka Doncic over this whole stretch we're talking about. And as long as you have a top 5 player in the league, I got to give you a chance. And you'll probably build around him. You've already started getting a center that fits really well with him and Mark Williams. And in a couple years, you'll have max salary cap space available. So I'm sure some star player will want to join the Lakers. And you'll have a great duo with Luka and somebody in like 2026 or 2027, whenever that max slot comes available. I don't know exactly. And the Lakers will probably be positioned to compete for titles, as much as I dislike that. Memphis Grizzlies. I'm going above average, but above the Pacers, and I'll reorganize this tier later on. This is not in order. The Pacers, though, not the Pacers, the Grizzlies, sorry, have John Morant, you have Desmond Bane, you have Jaren Jackson, and I think you keep that core intact for a while, and some of these young guys, like a G.G. Jackson, like a Zach Edey will be there as well, and you'll just continue to have this really solid playoff team. But similar problem to the Pacers, I don't see that top-level guy to take you to this tier. Maybe you could be like the Cavs at some point where the core works so well together that you are competing for titles. But right now I feel more confident about them just being a solid playoff, high-end playoff team, but never quite feeling like a real threat to win the NBA title. The Heat, it's between these two tiers for me. I'm going to go above average because I like the Jimmy Butler trade. And I think you like Tyler Hero, still young, and he made his first All-Star game, so maybe he gets better. But even if he stays around this level, that's a really good player. I like Khalil Ware a lot. You still have Bam. And I do think the coaching is one of the best in the league, and they've made decisions better than most teams in the league, drafted better than most teams in the league, I would say, as well. And they still do that thing with undrafted free agents better than probably anyone else. So because of that, I think you can be a solid playoff team. I would say you have more upside than the Pacers because Miami, a little bit of a free agency destination. But right now, I'm going to put them below the Pacers and above average because I'm more confident in the Pacers, even if the Heat have a little more upside. Milwaukee Bucks. I mean, if Giannis leaves in a couple of years, then it's terrible and it's here. But obviously, that hasn't happened yet. And since you have Giannis, maybe you think you could win a title. I don't think the roster is good enough around him. I don't think you have enough flexibility, even though you did get under the second apron with the Chris Middleton trade to aggregate some salaries, maybe in the offseason. But I got to put you a top end of above average right now because you have Giannis, which almost makes me want to put you here because I think he's the second best player in the world. But, I mean, I can't be confident enough. Even getting younger in Kuzma, Dame's still older and probably only has a few years, maybe not even a few. It could just be a couple years left in him at a high level. Brook Lopez, probably the same. So you're going to be expensive still, even though you got less expensive. A lot of the picks are gone, not a ton of young talent, and there's the risk of Giannis leaving, which could just plummet you. So right now, I'm not confident. I'm not putting them here. I'll put them actually below the Grizzlies here. The Timberwolves, I think a lot of people would have here just because of Anthony Edwards, but I'm not as high on Anthony Edwards as everyone else to be that top guy to lead a team to a championship. So because of that, I would put them high end here because I do think Edwards could be like a top 10, 8 to 12 guy in the league. For the next few years. Jaden McDaniels will be good, but I don't like the Rudy Gobert contract and how expensive this roster is, even though Randall should be gone soon. But yeah, Anthony Edwards is going to be a top guy. Personally, maybe it's a hot take. I'm not sure you'll win the title. And they haven't instilled a lot of confidence in me with how the moves they made this offseason and how those worked out. I think the future's still bright, but not bright enough for me to put them in the could win it title tier. The Pelicans is interesting because you have Zion. You just trade away Brandon Ingram. I like Trey Murphy. I like a lot. I think forgetting his name. Oh, Herb Jones, one of the better role players in the league. But it's still a so bad it might be good because, I mean, this team is brutal this year. And I think at some point you may just trade Zion and kind of reset this rebuild. Kind of what happened with the Anthony Davis thing, but just hope it works out differently this time. And you have a lot of picks, so maybe I would actually put them at the front here because you have a higher chance of hitting in the lottery or trading up. Just more chances at it because of all the picks, so I put them at the top of so bad it might be good. Next up, the New York Knicks. I think that's got to be a could win a title. Maybe even this year. Jalen Brunson, very good. Cat, very good. Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby, very good. And the team's going to be together probably pretty much in their prime for at least the next 2 to 3 years, I would think. And in those years, you'll have a chance to win a title. I don't know too much about what I think they'll turn into after that because these guys aren't super old. But I don't know if they'll blow it up at some point or how things will shake out. But I think they definitely could win a title. Thunder, easy as S tier. Okay, you're probably the best team in the league this year. I would have them as the favorite if I were, making ranking teams' likelihood to win the NBA title. I'd have the Thunder first. So in my opinion, you're the best team in the league this year. You're the youngest team in the league this year. So that's already a crazy combination because you're best and the youngest. So you have more room to improve than anybody else, and you're already the best. That's crazy. You have the most first round picks, most picks of anybody else. So you also have the most opportunities to add players to get better. And you have one of the lower payrolls in the league. Now that'll change once they extend Chet and J-Dub and that kicks in. But for now, you're one of the cheaper teams with the most picks, the youngest roster, and you're the best. If they don't win a title, it's a monumental failure, like gigantic proportions of failure if the Thunder do not win a title. Arguably the best setup of any team has ever had in the history of the NBA in terms of outlook on the future. It's absolutely insane how bright the future is in Oklahoma City. The Thunder, why do I keep doing that? The Magic. I'm going could win a title because I'm a big believer in Paolo Banchero to be like a top 5 level player, a guy that can lead his team to a championship. And I think Franz Wagner is going to be a great number 2 alongside him. If they can get a better point guard who can score a little, shoot a little, play make, kind of just run it like a Trae Young, if Atlanta moved off of him to like pair with these wings. And I think you already have a great like defenders that could be alongside him, and Jalen Suggs, Jonathan Isaac, even KCP, depending on who gets traded, who doesn't. And you have a lot of your own picks. I think the future for Orlando is really bright. They have their guy of the future. Just need a few pieces to get them to that next step. Sixers, I'm not sure what I want to do with the Sixers because you have Embiid, but he's obviously a little bit older, injury prone, and this season's been really bad. You have Maxey, who's a good young player. You have Jared McCain, who maybe would have won Rookie of the Year if he stayed healthy. Do I go above average? I'm going to go below average because this year was pretty bad, and the Paul George contract is going to be pretty bad. I don't see anyone trading for him to take that off your hands. So that's going to be a bad contract. That's expensive. Not sure what I think of Embiid and how he's going to hold up. And Jared McCain's a nice young talent. Don't know he's a star. So outside of Maxey, I'm not sure I see it. That's below average future for me. Then my favorite team in the NBA, the Phoenix Suns, just bad. It's just a bad future. I mean, moved out the Nurkic contract, but I still think we still have the highest payroll in the league, if I'm not mistaken. An owner that's seemingly out of his mind, just doing crazy things, going all in on Jimmy Butler to the point where we were maybe going to trade Kevin Durant, which defeats the whole purpose in the first point. The only thing that maybe says this is we're probably going to trade Kevin Durant in the offseason because of what went down at the trade deadline. And if, I'm not even sure we would because of how everything's happening, if we were able to get, a good haul for him to set up the future, maybe from someone like the Rockets gives a good package. I'm not sure who else would be interested right off the top of my head. Maybe that could salvage the future. But, at this point, we're stuck with Bradley Beal, this super high payroll that can't make trades, that's trade away to all their own picks, that will continue to trade away picks because the owner makes pretty crazy decisions. So I don't trust them to make better decisions in the future. It's got to be just bad, unfortunately, for my favorite team. Trailblazers, so bad it might be good. And they have some young talent. Depending on what you think of a guy like Sharp or Scoot Henderson or even Kamar, there's some young guys on there. And then Klingon they just drafted. And so there's some young talent. And I think you'll probably trade Simons, try to trade Grant and Ayton. I don't know if you will. Acquire more assets and try to hit on a guy in the lottery that hopefully, is your franchise guy and doesn't get injured. The Sacramento Kings, this is competing with the Hawks for the epitome of below average. I didn't like the Fox trade at all. I think you had to get one of San Antonio's top young assets, like a Stephon Castle, something, and they got none of it. Instead, you get Zach LaVine, so you build the Western Conference version of the Chicago Bulls to just be perpetually mediocre, never be bad enough to get a super high pick, never be good enough to compete for anything, and you're stuck in the below average tier. Spurs, do I go S tier? I mean, you have Victor Wembanyama, and you have De'Aaron Fox, who's going to dynamic duo, and you have all the talent around to make future trades, and you have the picks. When I originally made this, I put them at top here. I'm actually going S tier because I do think Victor Wembanyama is the best young player in the NBA, the number one guy I would build around. So that's something. You have like maybe the rookie of the year and Stephon Castle and all these other young players and contracts to move off of it, Vassell and Johnson and Jeremy Sohan still there. Guys like that. If another star, like I've seen Devin Booker trades mocked, I don't want that to happen. I want Devin Booker on my Suns. But just if there was a star available that you wanted to add, you have the picks and young players to add to that, or they just develop alongside them. I would put the Spurs. They are clearly third out of these for me, but I will put them in S tier. Raptors. The Raptors is interesting because of the Brandon Ingram trade. Because if you extend Brandon Ingram, which I would expect they would, you have the duo Barnes and Ingram, which might put you below average. Because I'm not sure that's good enough to get you above average, and that's a lot of money you're allocating away. But you will still be bad this year. Maybe you hit on the lottery. I'm going below average. I'll reorganize it at the end. Jazz, definitely so bad it might be good. I think I would have liked it if they'd moved off guys like Sexton and Collins and Clarkson. But I still think you can move off them in the offseason, and you may even trade Lauri Markkanen away. And you have all the picks, pretty much the epitome of this tier, and the Wizards as well. I mean, there's not much for me to explain here. They're the worst team in the league. You're just hoping for a guy like Cooper Flagg or someone of that caliber, maybe even next year, to be drafted and save the franchise, and hope your young guys like Koulibaly, probably your top young guy, but you also have Alex Sarr, obviously, and your young guys develop. So to recap, Oklahoma City, clear 1, Celtics, clear 2, Spurs, clear 3 for me. If I were to reorganize this tier, who do I like the best? I put the Rockets last because I'm not sure of their number one. Actually, I'm going Knicks last, Rockets second to last, because the Knicks, I think, won't win it, and the Rockets, I'm not sure because they don't have that top-level guy I believe in yet. Then I'd go the Pistons because they have the top guy, but they're the Pistons. I don't trust their management. Then I would go the Cavs because they don't have the top guy, but they look so good that I could just be wrong about that. Then I would go Nuggets because you have Jokic, but he's a little bit older, and the roster around him is not the best. Then I'd go Lakers because you have Luka for the future, and the Magic, I think, are a little brighter. I believe in Paolo a lot, and I think they're set up well and have made good decisions. Above average, do I like this order? I think this order is good. I like the Timberwolves with Edwards, and you should have more flexibility once Gobert is gone, but you gave him the extension, but Randall will be gone. At least you have Anthony Edwards, so that's a solid. Grizzlies, I like the core, but it's sort of like a slightly worse version of the Cavs, in my opinion, so a tier down. The Bucks, you have Giannis, but I'm scared he might leave, and I don't like what you have around him. Pacers and Heat pretty much just fit the above average tier. This, I will go Sixers the highest because at least you have Embiid. Maybe there's something there. Kings at the bottom. No, Kings at the bottom. Hawks below them because you might blow it up. Warriors above because you have maybe some free agency appeal, and I mean, at least you have Steph and Jimmy right now. We'll go Raptors there. I'll move the Jazz to the front end because I think you could acquire even more assets and have chances to hit. Then the Pelicans. I like the Hornets. We'll move the Wizards up, and I'll move the Blazers here. And I'm moving Dallas to the bottom because of the Luka trade. Just, you deserve to be at the bottom right now. So that's my tier list for the futures of these NBA teams. Remember, it's for the next 5-ish to 10-ish years. These three teams here at the top are the teams I'm most confident in to win a title, and then I think any of these teams have a shot at it. Let me know who's too high, who's too low, what would you change about it. Make sure to leave a like on the video and subscribe to help me grow the channel. Until next time.